Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello everyone. Now let us continue with the chapter that we had already done, that is matter around us pure? Now in the chapter till so far we learned about different kinds of mixtures. You know that the things that we see around us can be classified on the basis of their composition as pure substances or mixtures. So when we concentrate on mixtures, we find that mixtures are basically composed of two or more different components which are combining together without having any chemical bond between them. That means they retain their individual property and can be distinguishable or separable. So we basically have two types of mixtures, homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous mixtures are what? They are those in which the compositions are uniformly distributed. That means homogeneous mixtures have uniform composition, whereas heterogeneous mixture have non-uniform composition. That is, you will not be able to form a uniform mixture out of it. The mixtures can be identified even after mixing them together. So on the basis of their composition, homogeneous mixtures can be explained further as solutions or true solution. What are true solutions or solution? These are homogeneous mixture. The size of the particles are very minute. You cannot see them with your naked eyes. Even it becomes difficult to see them through microscope. The size of the particles are of the range 1 nanometer, that is 10 to the power minus 9 meters. As because the size of the particles are very minute, that's why homogeneous mixture solution cannot be separated through filtration and they are very, very stable. So keeping all these properties in mind, we had seen that salt solution, sugar solution, lemonade, these are all examples of solutions. Then we also studied about heterogeneous mixture. In heterogeneous mixture, we have two kinds, the suspension and the colloids. As far as suspensions are concerned, they have got the suspended particles throughout the bulk. And the size of the particles are comparatively large. You know the size of suspension particles are of the range greater than 100 nanometers. So because of their large size, they can be seen and thus separable through filtration. Yes, you can also pass light beam through it and the path of the light beam can be distinctly observed, which we term it as Tyndall effect. So this scattering of light beam by the suspension is known as Tyndall effect. In case of suspension, when you leave them undisturbed, you would see that they will gradually form sediments and thus suspension are unstable. Whereas in colloids, they look homogeneous but they are heterogeneous. Milk, blood, these are some examples of colloids. Now, because the size of the particles of colloids are also small, they are of the range between 1 nanometer and 100 nanometer, they also cannot be filtered through filter paper. However, if you want to separate them, you can do so through centrifugation process. You remember what is centrifugation process? Yes, where in a centrifuge machine, we insert a tube containing the colloid and we spun it very, very rapidly. When it is spun rapidly, the lighter particles will float whereas the heavier ones will settle down and thus separation is possible, which is extensively used in the laboratories, particularly for medical purposes. Alright, so taking all this knowledge into consideration, let us move ahead with the chapter. Now, when we are talking so much about mixtures, we need to understand that How would we separate these mixtures? For separation technique, you need to identify the properties. It is only by the identification of the properties you will be able to separate the mixtures. And what properties? Yes, the properties definitely has to be different. You cannot separate salt and sugar if dissolved in water, because the property of both salt and sugar is to dissolve in water and it forms a homogeneous mixture. So even if you evaporate, the water will be evaporated off, but salt and sugar will remain in the beaker. Or if you filter it, you will not be able to filter it, because both are forming homogeneous mixture with the solvent water. So you see, until and unless we do not get the differences in the properties, we will not be able to identify the properties of the particles and separate them distinctly. Now let us carry on this thing into our discussion.